Hello and welcome to the Sewing Cellar. Today we are going to sew the Little Lizard King's Islington top. Okay, so first time I've sewn this, so let's see how it goes. So I'm doing the sleeveless option. I'm just going to go through the pattern pieces on my very messy cutting table here. As it's summer and I've got this left over from another project. This is an ITY fabric. It's very lightweight. It's got a good stretch to it. Washes and wears quite well. I got this one from T9 Fabrics. It's a nice one to work with. It's very lightweight. It's perfect for this time of year for a quick all-rounder wash and chuck in the machine and get it out again quickly. So we've got cut on the fold here. I have got a front and a back, both cut on the fold. So I've got those two pieces there. And over here I have got a neck binding, an arm binding, and the neck ruffle, which should have been cut on the fold. But so because I was using up fabric, I hate wasting fabric, and I got enough left, but I've had to just cut this bit out of 2 lengths. So I'm going to machine that up in the middle. So that is all of my pattern pieces. There's a really handy trick that somebody from a forum on Little Lizard King's Facebook page, I believe, shared, which I'll show you for doing a ruffle. Really, really handy. So I've set both of my machines, my overlocker and my sewing machine, I've set them up with jersey needles. I think I've used 7510s, so they've got a ball point on so they don't make holes in fabric. I found it really hard to decide exactly what colour cotton to use, but because of the amount of colours in this fabric. I did it with a red last time, I didn't like it, so we've actually used a blue this time. Let's see what I think to that. So yeah, I've got the overlocker running nicely. It was grinning at me a little bit before because I'd used some rubbish threads. I've put some nice threads in it, back to my moon threads, which are the ones that I prefer. And I am going to get myself going on this. So we're going to start with the overlocker. You can do this without an overlocker. You can use a zigzag stitch on a standard sewing machine and it'll be absolutely fine. So I'm going to change my angle so you can see me at the overlocker machine and see what I'm doing. So I think you've got a pretty good view of my machine from this angle. So the first things we're going to do is sew our front and back right sides together, and we're going to sew the shoulder seams. Now, I'm not going to pin these because it's not going through a sewing machine. It's going through my overlocker. I would hate to catch one anywhere. So I'm just going to line these up and pop them through without too much worrying. Like I say, it was really hard to choose a colour, so it's not going to match, but it is what it is. The next project's blue later on, so I'm already set for a blue project. So I figured let's give that one a go. So we have got a 1.3 centimetre or a 1/2 inch seam allowance on this. Cotton nippers. There we go, that is the two are joined. So our next job is to sew down the sides with our 1/2 inch seam allowance as well. So I've not done the cropped one, I've done the full length one. I didn't, my granddaughter feels the cold a little bit at times, so I figured that that she would prefer the longer length, but I might make her a crop one to go with some summer skirts and shorts later on. Just checking the stitches because they weren't looking quite right earlier. So I'm just making sure that they are coming through nicely now. A very sharp learning curve in not using cheap cottons. Oh, I should have lifted my foot there because it started to go through. I didn't quite get away with it. There we go. this fabric's nice and lightweight, quite easy to work with. Right, so now we have the front and back joined at the shoulders and at the side seams. So you've got the basic shape already. Right, so now we are going to construct the hem, the ruffle neck, sorry. So this should be one continuous piece. I'll just pop the overlock stitch there. And I should be doing the same on the other side. Actually, I'm just going to pop the overlocker. Just tell you to do it with a zigzag stitch and press the seams, but I am going to be slightly lazy and run it through the overlocker. Now, the other thing with this is you can leave this edge raw. You can do an overlock rolled hem if you want to, or hem it in any other way you desire. However, because this knit doesn't fray, I don't need to do that. I can leave it as a raw edge, and as it's quite a big frill on the neck, that's exactly what I'm going to do. So my first one is that. So I'm going to show you. I've actually trimmed this as well with a wheel rather than with my scissors, because then I get a much neater edge. I don't want it choppy if I'm going to leave it raw. I want it nice and neat. So that is exactly what I've done. Now I'm going to show you my preferred way of sewing a ruffle. I'm just going to use my wheel. There we go. Just make that nice and smooth. So yeah, I'm going to show you my preferred way of using a ruffle, of sewing a ruffle, or gathering. So I've got this machine set on a wide zigzag stitch. And this is going to come out after, so it doesn't matter what colour you use. Just some embroidery floss. You can use dental floss. I just don't happen to have any at the minute because we've got the little sticks that you do tooth with instead. Anyway, I digress. This works just as well. I happen to have quite a bit of this at the minute. Did a Temu order. So this I am putting in the tiny little gap on my ordinary presser foot. Now I don't know how well you can see that from here, so I'm just going to be... So there, I've set my camera down nice and low. Right, I have a machine set on a very wide 4.5 and a 2.5 length zigzag stitch. And if you can see, I've got this embroidery thread sitting right in the middle. So the key is to go slowly with this and don't sew the embroidery thread. You want that to sit in the middle of this zigzag. So this is one of those less speed, more haste jobs. Okay, so I'm going nice and slowly, and I found this to be the most efficient way. When I do the 2 lines with loose tensions, invariably it gets stuck or broken and it hurts my fingers and etc. So I find this way to be much easier. So you can see what's coming through now. Okay. And I don't think you need to watch me do the whole thing, that'll be pretty boring. You get the idea. I'll come back when I've finished sewing this all on. So I've gone all the way around the edge of this. You can just put it in over there. You can see it all the way around the edge. Right, now this I need to gather up to roughly half the size it originally was. So that's about on the 60. So I've got to gather this, and it literally is as simple as getting my embroidery thread, not the zigzag threads, just the embroidery threads there, and it just slides down. So it's so easy compared to doing the double string method. I love this. I'm not going to cut it off because it might change. What am I at now? 39. I'll got hold of that bit there that I didn't need. There we go. Right. $29, so I'm just going to make that tiny bit bigger. Now I'm not going to cut this off just in case I've made a mistake, but I'm just going to tie a knot here, just with a little bit of leeway on it, so I can pull it shorter, let it out should I need to, because I don't know what the next step is going to be. I have briefly looked through the pattern, but I am one of those people that's like, let's just do it, let's just crack on. And preparation, what's it? Fail to prepare, prepare to fail. Whereas I just like to, I do sometimes have a really thorough read. If there's a video tutorial, I'm more likely to watch a video tutorial, I'm not going to lie. Which is what I thought, as I hadn't found one for this. And I wanted to make it because so basically I've made her a couple of dresses in this fabric, and there was enough left over to get a little t-shirt out of, and there might be enough scraps to get a pair of cycling shorts, which I'm really hoping there is, because I do like, especially with the dresses with the circle skirts, I like to pop a little pair of cycling shorts underneath. And let's face it, in the summer there's nothing better than just a pair of shorts and a little t-shirt anyway. Right, so just going to even these out a little bit more, but there is the neck ruffle. I'd wear this, it's really cute. So yeah, I will come back to you in a moment when we're going to attach this. So now I have gathered my ruffle. We turn this to the right side. Okay, look at that, it's so cool and bright. So my granddaughter is obsessed with rainbows, so it's actually quite long. I don't know if it's going to be a little bit long for her, but you know, she will grow as they do. So this goes wrong side of ruffle to right side of top. And because I've seamed this in half, I haven't got centre points, but I've got shoulder points, so I can line these seams that I made. I'm going to line up with the shoulder seam, which will make for a slightly neater finish. And then the other side. So now you can see this is actually a little bit big. So I'm glad that I didn't cut anything off or anything. I can pull that in a little bit tighter, and I can pull it from both sides so it'll match nicely. And then even out the gathers as well as I go. Right. And remember, the front and the back are slightly different lengths anyway. So the front's actually looking really nice. It's a very cute little looking top already. It's quite a fast make, and when you've got small children that grow quickly, it's nice to have easy care clothes. I am a big fan of like the organic cotton and linen and bamboo and everything for the summer, but also, you know, not everybody can afford that kind of fabric because it's not cheap, firstly, and it's okay if you've got perhaps a couple of children to for it to go through. When you've only got one child that's not going to pass the clothes on to the next one, and you want something quick to make that's going to be quick, easy and last well, but you're on a budget, something has to give. I always say my budget and my principles never quite match. One day I hope they will, you never know. So there we go, so that's about right now. So I'm just going to pin this. Just going to move this back a little bit so you can see it. There we go, so I'm going to pin this neckline here in place at the front and at the back, and I'll come back to you. So I have got my ruffle evenly distributed. How pretty does that look? So now I'm going to base this in place with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, so it's going to go inside the neck binding. Okay, so my basting stitch I've set nice and long, and then I will be able to remove this bright yellow thread. although you may not see it at all with this, so I may be a bit lazy and not remove it. We'll see. Okay, so onto my sewing machine. I'll just move that over so it's in camera shot. Camera over. Okay. So there we go. There you go, you can see that. So this is going to go inside a very small seam allowance. What I'm going to aim to do actually is get all of this zigzag stitch. If I stitch it on the zigzag stitch, all of that will then be inside the binding, and I won't have to unpick any of the stitches. And if I get the odd one visible, then I'll unpick them. But I think I've pretty much got this close enough here to the edge that I'll be able to hide it, which has made me very happy. So let's go with this then. I'm going quite slowly, less haste, more speed, one of those moments. I've learned the hard way. When I ram this through quickly, I get pleats, not ruffles. I get bits that I've missed. I end up having to sew it more times, so I'm better to go slow the first place. And I shouldn't be sewing over my pins, I'm aware of that, but put it on a nice wide stitch setting so it's less likely to hit my pins as I'm going over, and it's keeping everything in place. But it is a little bit naughty of me sewing over my pins. And I'm just going to lift the foot up just to help coax that bit through so it doesn't slide. I may suffer the consequences and end up smashing my needle and having to change it. But I'll take my chances today. Kind of set up an agreement with my machine. Because most of the time it does actually like me and work quite well. And this machine had an all singing, all dancing computer on it. And this old Janome that one of my friends gave me when I first started sewing has been far more reliable and good to me than the all singing, all dancing. So sometimes you don't have to have the most expensive and the most designer. Just a hand-me-down sewing machine has been my ever faithful. Certainly can't complain. I'm just moving the pins out of this now because I just need to slide my ruffle along a little bit. I seem to have either grown or stretched somewhere, and this is why I didn't cut it off so much. To allow adjustments if I'm needed, and I've still got the seam, so I'm really happy about that. Saying about not catching stuff in, I knew it, I just missed a little bit there where I'd already sort of go back to catch that little bit I've just missed in a second. So this is just a basting stitch, so I'm not going to lock it off because we're going over this with some binding shortly anyway. But what I am going to do is catch this little bit here that I missed. And near, look at that, all the way around, and there's one tiny little bit just there I've missed. So it's very easily done when you haven't got the pins in. All right. Catch it that time, or have I just gone over the... Yes, that's got it. No, it hasn't. It's nearly got it. I've still missed another bit. Right, hang on.
Would you like toast?
Yes, please.
1 or 2,
One, please. My lovely husband in the background there. I should have stopped filming if I'd have known he was going to ask me. But I'm not complaining. He's making me cheesy scrambled eggs on toast. Because he knows that I've got a bit fixated on sorting machines out today. He's letting me just get on with it. Isn't he lovely? Right. So there we go. Moving machine so I can show you. There is that, all basted in paste. And I'm just going to cut my threads. Tidy up because there are little threads around and about that just need dealing with. I'm actually just going to trim some of this seam allowance down a little bit as well, so it's easier to go into the binding. Just where I've got a lot of chunks of this isn't in the instructions, this is just me doing something as I'm going along to pop some an extra level, just because if I haven't got it all perfectly even, it's harder to squash it into the binding, okay, to keep it inside the binding. And with quite so many ruffles on, I don't want to make my life harder than it has to be. So if I'd have got it perfectly straight on my 1/4 inch seam allowance, I wouldn't need to do this. But disclaimer, it's also given me the opportunity to look at a couple of bits that I may have missed as well. As a disclaimer, I have been sewing for several years. I'm entirely self-taught. I would never consider myself advanced. In fact, I even forget that I need to remember to keep my threads long enough so I don't have to keep threading my needle every 5 minutes. Yeah, I'm relatively experienced in that I've made myself and my granddaughter a lot of clothes, but I certainly wouldn't call myself an expert. Although the comments that I get on the things that I've made when people see what I've made are very flattering and makes me feel like an expert. So yeah, I'm not saying I'm doing this the perfect way. I'm saying I'm doing this my way, and it works for me. And just because you might do it a different way doesn't mean either of us are wrong. But if you've got any tips for me, I'll happily take them, and I'll happily share the tips with you that I've discovered, like this hack for gathering. There's a really nice dress by the same company. It's called Canterbury. It's got so many ruffles in it. I will make another one of those later because my granddaughter loves it. So there we go. But that just made that ruffling so much easier. So if you have used a jersey for this looks like it's hanging, it's nice just because of the weight of the ruffle. If you've used a jersey and it's lost shape a little bit, if you get your iron on it and just hover it over the top and let the steam on it, so you're not actually touching it with the iron, you're just steaming over the top, that jersey will shrink back up again. It will give it a chance to it'll lose that relaxedness and have its shape back. So just a handy little tip for you there. Right, next step is to get the binding on. So here's my neckband. I'm just going to get the short ends right sides together, pop them under my overlocker. So I've got one complete circle, which won't take me a second. Yeah. Right. Well, I clearly didn't cut that very evenly. I'm just going to trim that because that's not very neat, is it? Make my life a little bit easier. So what I'm going to need to do now is 1/4 it off. But it's my tea break time, so I'll be back in a moment. Sounds like my dinner's ready. Right, I'm back. So I've got my neck binding, which is in a circle, and I'm going to 1/4 it. So taking the seam and that side there. It's in half. So I'll just pop a pin in here to mark it. And I'll line the pin up with the sleeve, with the seam that side. And a pin in that side. And a pin in that side. So I've now got the seam is 0.1. Yep, so I've got this into quarters. I take the seam, right side of the fabric, the wrong side of my top, find the centre of the back of the neck, which is there, and that seam then, the centre point there, will go. And we'll pin that. And that quarter point there will line up with one shoulder sleeve seam, even shoulder sleeve, one shoulder seam, and then the other quarter point, the other shoulder seam. And when I've sewn that on, I'll match up the other side. Actually, I might match it all up now. Make my life easier. Okay. So this one is going to do the centre. This point now should pin at the centre front. So if I just put those two together like that, there's my centre front. That's the centre front there. And I'm going to pin that onto there and get ready to sew this on. Now I'm going to overlock this on, but you could use your zigzag stitch or a stretch stitch on your regular machine. Personally, I'm going to put the ruffles underneath. Some people find it easier to work with the ruffles on the top. It's up to you, but I'm going this way around, and I've also pinned it this way around so I can take the pins out more easily. Can't get away with leaving pins in on my overlocker, obviously, because if a pin hits the knife blade, then I'm going to be in trouble. Let's just pop that foot down. Right. So I'm going to go slowly with this because it's really easy to miss a bit or end up with wrinkles and ruffles. So I'm making sure that all of this is nicely lined up as I go round. Okay. I'll come back when I've finished it. Okay, I don't know how much of this you can actually see. It's hard for me to tell from the angle that I'm at now. And you see I'll come back when I've gone all the way around. Right, I've gone all the way around now. Okay, so we are all attached. I'm going to turn this the right way around. So now I'm going to take this binding now and I'm going to fold it under and over There we go. To encapsulate. Now you may find it easier to press this, but this stuff's quite good for sort of curling under a little bit when you give it a bit of a stretch. So I'm going to go around and pin this all in place, and then I'm going to put like a cover stitch over the top to hold it in situ, and then you'll only have one stitch each showing each side. So I'll come back when I've done that. Right, so that's my binding all pinned in place. So I'm going to do a long straight stitch, the same as my basting stitch, to secure the binding in place as neatly as I can. That's the hard bit. Right, there is the bound neckband. So I'm going to repeat the process on both the arm sides now. Okay. Okay, so there is our little top. So I'm just going to run an overlock around the bottom so it's neat, and then hem it with a zigzag stitch. I'm just going to press the binding so it's completely finished, and then I'll pop it on the little mannequin I've got upstairs and take some pictures to show you.